And we're live, I believe. Nope. I mean, I hope to get a clean intro someday. Like something crispy and clean. Yeah, buddy. This is usually where I'm gonna start, right here.
Welcome to Democracy Now!, democracynow.org, The Quarantine Report. I'm Amy Goodman. In Houston, Texas, thousands gathered Monday to pay their respects to George Floyd 2 weeks after he was killed by Minneapolis police. His brother, Terrence Floyd, spoke to reporters in front of a memorial at the Fountain of Praise Church, where a public viewing was held.
And I tell you what, if he was told he would have to sacrifice his life to bring the world together, and I knowing him, I knowing he would have did it. Wow. And I mean, I love this love, and we all hurting as a family.
The Reverend Al Sharpton appeared with George Floyd's brothers, along with relatives of Trayvon Martin, Eric Garner, Botham Jean, Armand Arbery, and Michael Brown. The Floyd's family attorney, Benjamin Crump, also spoke.
Either America will destroy racism, or racism will destroy America. In the name of George Floyd.
George Floyd's funeral is today in Houston, his hometown. He'll then be buried next to his mother. In Minneapolis, former police officer Derek Chauvin made his first court appearance for the murder of George Floyd via video from a maximum security prison. His bail was set at $1.25 million, or $1 million with conditions. A warning to our audience. This headline contains video of graphic police violence. Authorities in Austin, Texas are facing new questions over the death of an African-American man named Javier Ambler in March of last year. He died after being pulled over by Williamson County deputies after...
Democracy Now! Pulling it back all the way a year right now. Up top, March 28th, 2019.
A chase that began when he failed to dim the headlights of his SUV while passing a deputy's car. Newly released police body cam footage shows Ambler was repeatedly tased while he told the officers, "I have congestive heart failure, I can't breathe, and I'm not resisting."
Other hand, put it out there. Other hand, give me a hand. I'm gonna tell you, fly on your stomach, fly on your stomach, fly on your stomach, fly on your stomach, fly on your stomach. Stop resisting. Stop resisting.
How many people are gonna say I can't breathe? How many?
Stop. You need to comply. Stop resisting.
Until it stops.
Details about Amber's death are only coming to light now after the Austin American-Statesman successfully forced the release of the police body cam footage and internal reports about the killing. Until last week, Ambler's family only knew he died in police custody. His death was also filmed by A&E's reality show Live PD, but the footage has never been public.
They only knew that he died in custody and now it's just coming out? A whole year later? Like, he died before even being in custody? He died mid-custody? The same case a year later? A year earlier? It's like we just keep repeating this weird cycle. All across the country.
Viewed.
Never-ending
circle. Was a
circle.
former postal worker and father of two. The Travis County District Attorney has announced the case will go to a grand jury this summer. In New Mexico, a Las Cruces police officer has been charged with involuntary manslaughter for the death of a man after a traffic stop in February. The officer, Christopher Smelzer, remains free on bail. He's accused of killing Antonio Valenzuela by placing him in a neck restraint. Smelzer is heard on a newly released lapel video telling Valenzuela, quote, "I'm going to expletive choke you out, bro." Even after Valenzuela lost consciousness, the video shows Smelzer made no attempt to help him. Instead, he's heard describing his encounter with Valenzuela as a, quote, "good little fight." Antonio Valenzuela was a father of four who worked as a painter. According to the Washington Post, Las Cruces, New Mexico, had the highest rate of police killings of any city in the country between 2015 and 2019.
And it gets darker.
On Capitol Hill, Democratic lawmakers from the House and Senate introduced their police reform legislation Monday.
Wearing racist cloths.
Black Caucus Chair Karen Bass.
This is how political parties show solidarity. This is how mainstream political party shows solidarity, is just by going PR to the motherfucking max, bro, with like minimum policy reform, minimum patch hole changes, a little quick fix here for the next, I don't know, 4 years. I don't know. When was the last one? Next 6 years? Who knows? Because maybe, next time it'll happen sooner and a lot brighter and worse. Who knows? Jesus fucking Christ. Take the fucking cloths off. The Justice in Policing
Act establishes a bold, transformative vision of policing in America. Never again should the world be subjected to witnessing what we saw on the streets in Minneapolis.
Nobody should be witnessing any of this ever again. Get to work. Get it done.
Murder of an individual by a uniformed police officer.
The legislation would make prosecuting police abuses easier, create a national registry to track misconduct, ban the transfer of some military equipment to police departments, and ban chokeholds and other...
Look at them. That's like how you start out in Call of Duty right there. You get dropped off by a truck, lock and load. Except that's like the middle of Minneapolis.
Practices that have killed people. Before unveiling the bills, a group of prominent Democratic lawmakers, including Speaker Nancy Pelosi, Senate Majority Leader Chuck Schumer, Congressmember Jim Clyburn, and Senator Cory Booker took...
I want to really talk about how taking a knee is just dumb now. It's really dumb. It's dumb. Stop taking a knee. It's kind of backwards at this point now that we're all super late to the Kaepernick's party. But now that I'm seeing a bunch of Dems do it with the fucking cloths on while they're also patching really minimalist reforms, it's just too much. It's just too much. I don't know how 2020 can get worse besides an opposition party to the president that is just scraping by off of just being weird. This is a weird image. And it's going to be in history books.
A symbolic knee on the floor of the Capitol's Emancipation
People are going to
Hall
have to learn about this weird stance. This weird stance.
6 seconds. The amount of time Derek Chauvin pinned George Floyd to the ground.
I would have much enjoyed it so much better if they had actually gotten the position that George Floyd was in, rather than the position that Derek Chauvin was in. If they had laid on their stomachs with their hands behind their backs for 9 minutes, I think that would have been a lot more compelling rather than them kneeling. Just to me, there's one guy standing. Why is he even there then? So what's the point? PR. I can't see anything other than just PR, save face, clean it up, sweep it under the rug. We'll forget in 3 weeks anyways. We're a goldfish country. Fuck it.
By his neck while Floyd gasped for air, slowly dying. In New York, Ramsey Orta, the man who filmed Eric Garner's arrest
this image is so infuriating.
has been released from prison. He'd been serving 4 years on gun and drug charges, but was given early release because of the coronavirus pandemic. In Virginia, a man who claims to be a leader of the Ku Klux Klan has been arrested after driving his car into a group of protesters in Richmond Sunday night.
We talked about this morning.
Was charged with assault and battery. Local authorities described him as a, quote, admitted leader of the Ku Klux Klan and a propagandist for the Confederate ideology, unquote. Meanwhile, in Bakersfield, California, there have been...
would anybody, joke or assume that he was doing that like the Antifa meme? Like how everybody's saying they're the leader of Antifa. He just drove his car through people and said he was the leader of the KKK. He might just be memeing on us, because I feel like if it was a real KKK, there would be some shit outside the jail at some point or the courthouse. But if he's just one of those meme or troll Pepe dudes, then he's probably just gonna hang out in prison for a little bit. Probably not long enough for attempted manslaughter, but he's not getting that charge. So
at least 3 recent cases where drivers ran into protesters. On Saturday, a 55-year-old African-American man named Robert Forbes died after being hit earlier in the week by a white driver. No charges have been filed, but witnesses have accused the driver of intentionally trying to hit protesters. And in Seattle, An African-American man was injured Sunday when a man drove into a crowd of protesters and opened fire. The driver, Nicholas Fernandez, is being held for suspicion of assault in the first degree. In more news from Seattle, protesters are claiming victory after they established a barricaded zone around a police precinct building that had been the site of protests and a brutal police crackdown for 8 days. Seattle Police Chief Carmen Best described the move as an exercise in trust and de-escalation. On Friday, Seattle announced a 30-day ban on the use of tear gas, but officers continue to use it against protesters over the weekend. Meanwhile, the Seattle City Council has begun discussing demilitarizing or defunding the police force. On Monday, Seattle City Councilperson Kshama Sawant introduced a bill to ban police from using chemical weapons and chokeholds. The killing of George Floyd has sparked major shifts globally on how governments are approaching police violence. On Monday, France banned police use of chokeholds during arrests. In Britain, over 160 members of Parliament wrote a letter to the International Trade Secretary demanding Britain suspend the export of British riot gear, tear gas, and rubber bullets to the United States. Quote, "We should not be helping Donald Trump repress his own people," said Labour MP Jeremy Corbyn on Twitter. While calls to defund the police are growing in the United States.
Repress is like just, what, 2 letters away from being oppress. And, he could have... Almost there, Corbyn. Almost there.
United States, Joe Biden has come out against the policy.
2 more letters,
Monday, a spokesperson for his campaign said Biden, quote, "does not believe police should be defunded." Meanwhile, Joe Biden traveled to Houston Monday to meet with the family of George Floyd. They met for about an hour. In the occupied West Bank, Palestinians rallied Monday in Ramallah against Israel's plan to annex the West Bank. Protesters also carried signs honoring George Floyd and in solidarity with the anti-police brutality uprising in the United States. The protest follows similar actions across the occupied Palestinian territories and Israel in recent days. On Saturday, Senator Bernie Sanders addressed crowds via video stream at a rally in Tel Aviv, telling protesters annexation must be stopped, unquote. Meanwhile, in the West Bank city of Bethlehem, a mural of George Floyd was painted on the separation wall with Israel. This is Mahmoud Abidallah, who initiated the idea for the tribute mural.
We paint on the apartheid wall that we are trapped under as a message of solidarity with them and of solidarity with black people who are in the United States that are oppressed, and where you can see racial discrimination between white and black people.
Oh, that's beautiful.
In other news from Israel,
that's
the
all
government recently reversed its relaxation of coronavirus restrictions after it recorded a spike in cases.
The Palestinians are some
Confirmed
sweethearts.
cases of the coronavirus worldwide now top 7 million, with over 400,000 deaths. As many countries open up again, the World Health Organization warned Monday the situation is getting worse globally.
Yeah.
Although the situation in Europe is improving, globally it's worsening. More than 100,000 cases have been reported on 9 of the past 10 days. Yesterday, more than 136 cases were reported, the most in a single day so far. 100,000 globally, it's worsening. More than 100,000 cases have been reported on 9 of the past 10 days. Yesterday, more than 136 cases were reported, the most in a single day.
See, I'm having a hard time getting that number. 106?
The most in a single day so far.
Nearly 3/4 of recent cases came from 10 countries, mostly in the Americas and South Asia, said the World Health Organization. The WHO also said the spread of COVID-19 by asymptomatic people appears to be rare. Latin America remains the epicenter of the pandemic, with the highest tolls reported in Brazil, Mexico, Chile, and Peru, which together account for over 1 million confirmed cases. The WHO said over the weekend Central and South America have likely not reached peak transmission yet. However, Cuba remains a bright spot in the region, where infections have been on the decline for 2 months. Cuba announced this weekend it's closing in on the tail end of the pandemic. In New Zealand, nearly all restrictions have
all
been
wearing
lifted,
masks.
including social distancing and limits on public gatherings, as the country enters into the least restrictive phase of the recovery. New Zealand has not reported any new cases in over 2 weeks. In South Africa, President Cyril Ramaphosa said he's worried as the country's cases have surged over the past 2 weeks. On Monday, the official death toll topped 1,000. Here in the United States, COVID-19 infections hit record highs in 14 states and Puerto Rico since the start of June, as the nationwide caseload nears 2 million and over 111,000 deaths. Some states that started easing restrictions before meeting the recommended metrics for reopening have seen major surges, including Texas and Arizona. But the true toll of the pandemic in the U.S. remains hard to estimate. Fewer than half of the U.S. states are reporting probable coronavirus cases and deaths to the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention per federal recommendations.
I've heard this so many times where Amy's delivering the news and her throat gets really dry and she keeps pushing forward, and it sounds brutal, honestly. Like, I kind of wish she would just say, hold on and take a drink, but I guess that's professionalism. Nothing I know about. So that's good on her, I guess. Like, I just feel so bad when that throat just gets so dry. It sounds like she just came back from a desert trip or some shit.
These include some of the largest and most populous states, including California, Florida, and New York. Meanwhile, the New York Times reports that dozens of major hospitals that receive billions in government bailouts through the CARES Act continue to furlough, fire, or cut the pay of tens of thousands of workers, even as their CEOs receive pay packages of tens of millions of dollars.
Did they use them for stock buybacks? He said they weren't going to use them for stock buybacks. Did he say that he used them for...
In immigration news, a complaint filed by 2 immigrant rights groups accuse Immigration and Customs Enforcement of spraying a likely hazardous coronavirus disinfectant over 50 times a day at the Adelanto Detention Center in California in poorly ventilated and crowded areas. Prisoners there have reported nosebleeds, fainting, headaches, stomach pain, and a burning sensation.
I mean, if you inadvertently trap a bunch of, let's say, brown people in a concentration camp near the border, are we getting closer to, I don't know, it's not a genocide because we're not rounding them up yet, right? Like, there's a side, CIDE, that we're missing here. Is it homicide? Massicide? What would that be? Because, like, trapping all these people together and forcing them to catch corona, bad policy. That's very bad policy. No, I don't like it.
In their skin after coming into contact with the chemical.
Bad Adelanto.
Related news, at least one asylum seeker held at ICE's Port Isabel detention facility in South Texas has entered his 2nd week on hunger strike to protest squalid conditions and lack of protection against COVID-19. In Spain, a former Salvadoran army colonel appeared in a Madrid court Monday to face trial 30 years after he allegedly orchestrated the 1989 murders of 6 Jesuit priests, their housekeeper and her daughter, in El Salvador. 5 of the victims were Spanish nationals. Inocente Orlando Montano served as El Salvador's security minister and is accused of ordering the attack that was carried out by a U.S.-trained counterinsurgency force. Montano lived in the United States for 16 years and was extradited to Madrid in 2017. Montano could face up to 150 years in prison if convicted.
That's dark.
And 80-year-old peace activist, former nun Liz McAllister, has been sentenced to time served for breaking into the Kings Bay Naval Submarine Base on April 4, 2018, to protest U.S. nuclear weapons programs. The Georgia base is home to at least 6 nuclear ballistic missile submarines, each of which carries 20 Trident thermonuclear weapons. Her 6 co-defendants in the Kings Bay Plowshare 7 will be sentenced later this month. During the sentencing hearing Monday, McAllister said, quote, "I don't apologize for it. I think the weapons are completely destructive of life," she said. In addition to time served, she was sentenced to pay $25 per month and serve 3 years of supervised release. Liz McAllister appeared on Democracy Now! Last October after serving 17 months locked up.
Before she goes on her speech, it is kind of amazing that there isn't a bigger movement to disarm the entire world of nuclear weapons, but maybe that's just how powerless we are at the moment. They have all the nukes. Yep.
If the munitions and those Trident submarines are ever used, that's the end of life on Earth. That's the end of life on Earth. I have to say no to that. We don't have that right to destroy God's creation.
To see our full interview with Liz McAllister, visit democracynow.org. And those are some of the headlines. This is Democracy Now!, democracynow.org, The Quarantine Report. I'm Amy Goodman in New York City, joined by my co-host Juan Gonzalez from his home in New Brunswick, New Jersey. Hi, Juan.
Hi, Amy, and welcome to all of our listeners and viewers across the country and around the world.
Little Juan Gonzalez. He's got that warm grandpa smile. Maybe later. Maybe later on that one. I thought I did have some... Ooh. Uh-oh. I don't know if I do want to get into that. Is criticism really important? I don't know if I want to get into that either. Like, is music criticism really that important? Would we have gotten, like, Eminem, even if, like, someone didn't tell him that his album was whack? You know? I don't know. Especially, like, internet, well, not internet, but, like, blog criticisms, like, people who make a living off of criticism. I don't know if it's that essential. It's not essential worker, bro. All right, I want to take a minute of Senate Republicans reacting to Trump accusing a 75-year-old man of being a member of Antifa.
Senator Cornyn, can you stop?
This is historic shit right here. A 75-year-old leader of Antifa provoked the cops into sending him into a coma.
Mics for a second.
Wild.
What do you make of the president's tweet this morning? And does the president need to
he just walks right off.
About what he
This dude gets asked the question, what do you think about the tweet this morning? And he doesn't even stand there for a second. He says, fuck no. Oh, fuck no. My career ain't touching this one. He just
tweet this morning. And does the president need to be more cautious about what he tweets?
How do I make that a GIF, man? Because that shit is classic. Holy fuck. That guy deserves to resign. Fucking resign.
The president's tweet this morning about the Buffalo protester.
Do you think the president needs to be more careful about his tweets, like the one this morning? What did you think of the president's
wants to answer this question.
Any response to the
Holy
president's
shit.
tweets? Any response, sir? I'll get you back on. You saw the president's tweet this morning.
He said, I'll get back on? You know, how does nobody know how to feel about this?
The president's tweets. Any response, sir?
Do you have to be told how to feel about it before you can answer the fucking question? Do the Republicans all have to gather in a ritual circle, suck blood from children, and decide how they're going to go about this fucking narrative? Oh my God.
The president's tweet this morning where he talked about
these are not leaders. These are not leaders.
I just saw the tweet and I know nothing of the episode, so I don't know.
These are not leaders. Fuck this guy.
Should the president be careful about tweeting potential conspiracy theories?
I don't know whether the president should be careful about what he tweets. I don't think Donald Trump's going to change.
Do you think the president made a mistake here?
No, I think when you tweet often, you're going to end up maybe tweeting stuff that you're not happy about.
Yeah, I saw the tweet.
When you tweet so much, you're going to end up with tweets you're not going to be happy about. That's an excuse?
It was a shocking thing to say, and I won't dignify it with any further comment.
Just saw.
Mitt Romney, you're still scraping at the bare minimum, bro. Come on. Up the game. Like, fuck, he can't up the game. That's him. That's where he's at. That's where he's
this
at.
second,
Whatever.
it just makes no sense that we are fanning the flames. Not at this time. This is not good.
What about the president's tweet, though? Was that appropriate, sir?
As I said, we are discussing in the Senate Republican Conference.
Yep. See, Turtle McConnell here just admits right here that we are discussing in the Senate conference how we're going to move forward.
What response we think is appropriate to the events of the last 2 weeks.
What response is appropriate of the last 2 weeks? They don't know how to respond. Maybe this they got to consider what the opportunistic, I guess, the opportunities that are out there. You know, how do we make money out of this? Probably.
Senator Scott, have you had a chance to look at the president's tweet and what?
How
is
do
your
we sway
response?
the racists out in the streets for more violence?
Can I read it to you? It says, Buffalo protesters shoved by police could be Antifa provocateur. 75-year-old Martin Gugino was pushed away after appearing to scan police communications in order to black out the equipment. OANN, I watched. He fell harder than was pushed. Was aiming scanner. Could be a setup.
I didn't see it.
He said, I didn't see it. First, it's I didn't see the tweet. And then second, it's just, I didn't see the video. How's anybody proud to be a Republican? They have absolutely no transparency, no fucks to give. It's nuts. They don't answer a fucking question. Like, I don't know. We expect nothing out of leadership. And when we expect nothing, we don't get free college. When we expect nothing, we don't get universal health care. When we expect nothing, we don't get real criminal reform, justice reform, police reform. When we expect nothing, we get nothing. And thank God I found the other video right there. This motherfucker. Almost lost it. It almost slipped right past me. I don't hear this guy talk very often, so I'm excited. He's one of those like shadowy dick guys. Like, I don't know, take your pick, Nixon or Cheney. He's a slicky dick.
General of the United States, Bill Barr. Mr. Attorney General, thanks for being here.
Thank you, Brad.
The effort across the country, there is this movement to defund police departments. The Minneapolis City Council, with a veto-proof vote, saying they're going to essentially dismantle that police department. What do you make of that effort and what it means for the country?
Well, I think it's the exact opposite of the way we should go. You know, I understand, given the
If Bill Barr believes that that's the exact opposite of where we should go, he believes in a police state. We want a more open, transparent, closer community police, and he wants militarized police. Police so armored up you can't even see the humanity beneath all of that armor.
history of racial injustice in this country, why the African American community, or at least some of it, would view the ghastly events in Minneapolis as manifestations of institutional racism in police departments. But I think, in fact, over the past 50 or 60 years, we've had a lot of reform of police departments. I was Attorney General.
We've had a lot of reform, and yet we have the same complaints. And in fact, it's gotten worse. Well, we haven't had Kent State yet, but the responses from people are getting worse. The fact that a lot of people are down, especially in Minneapolis, to actually dismantle and start a new program, that says a lot about how much, anger and distrust is sown into their very city. So, fuck you, Bill.
30 years ago, and I can tell you there's a world of difference. Today, the police chiefs, the rank and file officers understand the need for change, and there has been great change. And I think defunding the police, holding the entire police structure responsible for the actions of certain officers is wrong.
What do you mean of certain officers? It's the protest now. Nobody really wanted to abolish the police that hard until police across the United States had their own riots.
And I think it's dangerous to demonize police.
But so how do these bad cops, if you want to call them that, get through in these systems? Do you blame police unions? Do you blame the systems themselves for not weeding them out? How do you address what obviously is this frustration? And
he's going to blame the protesters.
Not referring to any particular case, I think you have to remember this is not a monolithic system. There are thousands of different police forces. There are approximately 900,000 police officers in the United States. And right now, there's a crisis in policing because it's a very tough job. We had before COVID, a full employment economy. And if anything, we've had trouble attracting people and retaining people as police officers. We want the best, most responsible people we can get. And we have to attract them into the...
I don't know if that equivocates between each other. Is like not having enough people wanting to be cops and them wanting to get the best that they can get. I'm pretty sure that was his words. Like, it sounds like a term of endearment and to make Republicans feel safe, but to me that sounds like we got the best we could get.
We've had trouble attracting.
Yep, we've had trouble attracting people
and retaining people as
police officers.
Most responsible people we can get.
We want the best and most responsible people we can get. So you want to? No, I'm not even going to get into the analogy. I feel like it's pretty self-explanatory. Like, they had a problem attracting people, so they took what they could get. And what we got is people who wanted to be in the KKK.
And we have to attract them.
Not all of them, but...
We have to retain them, we have to train them. And we have to continue to professionalize our police forces. We have, generally speaking...
It's funny he calls militarized professionalized. That's another interesting language flip.
Police forces in the United States. None of us as individuals want to be lumped together with others. We want to be judged by what we do as individuals. We don't want...
So Bill Barr says that we don't want to be judged as groups. We want to be judged as individuals. So who are the thugs? Who are the criminals out in the streets? This is very sus. All of your language, sus.
Misconduct of others attributed to us, and that's in every walk of life. You know, one of the legitimate grievances of the African American community is that they're treated with suspicion and braced simply because they're African Americans, and that does happen. By the same token, demonstrators.
Ooh, and that does happen. This isn't American, but this video is so fucking important. This video. Oh no. Oh God. I'm gonna have to get back to that. All right. Oh, and then that. Oh shit. Oh yeah, I responded that QAnon dude. Oh fuck. Oh, okay. Fuck. Shit. I swear I have a rule of not interacting with conspiracy theorists on Twitter, but I fucked up. All right, where's that tweet? Where is that British police officer? Fucking shit up. This homeboy right here. Man, my Twitter sure did take a minute to play them vids. Oops. You. Come on, bruh. Come on, bruh. Let's go in the comments. The K is not racist. Fair share. What in the UK ain't racist is this? Oh, there's a whole video. I was just gonna play that short little clip, but there's a whole ass video right here of the whole interaction. Yeah, this guy says like, "I'm sorry, I pulled you over because I profiled you. I swear I'm not racist, but I had to pull you over because you're black." It's funny. It's great. It's too bad. My delivery sucks, but his is great. It's great. The dude's a pure comedian.
Peaceful demonstrators shouldn't be treated as violent extremists simply because they're out on the streets. It's
Right.
the same with police officers. Every organization has individuals who engage in misconduct, and we have to be very careful before we say the whole organization is rotten.
What would happen if a major American city, Chicago, D.C., disbanded its police department? What would that look like? Would the federal government have to step in?
Well, what it would look like is you would have increases in vigilantism, and you would have increasing chaos in the city. And
Increasing vigilantism and increasing chaos. The odd thing about the Second Amendment is that there's a little piece in there that's kind of ignored, and I'm not advocating for anything. It's just that while having the right to bear arms, every American, unless you're a felon, there's also the right to what is called well-regulated militias. Not sure what the well-regulated means. I don't think there is a bureaucracy or a department where you go fill out paperwork to become a militia. I'm pretty sure and you are constitutionally set up to start your own people's armies. So vigilantism is kind of a funny word. Because in a state obsessed with having its laws obeyed, people taking the power back, that's vigilantism. In this world, they won't see it like that either. It'll actually be called a rebellion or an insurgency, but for now they're going to call it vigilantism, or that's even just the language for when the white supremacists come out for their boogaloo. Either or, just fill out the paper, the Mad Lib. Just fill out the Mad Lib.
And that's why doing things that prevent us from having a strong, effective police force are counterproductive. You'll end up having more killings. And that's been shown time and time again.
But a major American city doing that, you're saying, would be dangerous?
Absolutely. I think we have to put things in perspective. Obviously, when police use excessive force, they have to be held accountable. And right here, both the state and federal government zoomed in and immediately took up the matter. There's no question it's an issue and has to be dealt with. But in terms of sheer numbers, is it these police officers who are oppressing African American communities? There are a lot more damage, a lot more killing, a lot more fear engendered on the streets from criminal elements. In Chicago, for example, in one weekend, 60, 70 people shot. If you pull back the police from these communities, there'll be more harm done to these communities.
But it's really hard to argue that the police are keeping the peace, just in the curfew situation. If we're gonna isolate that, because the movement is so much broader at this point, I can't agree with what he's defending.
The president, has been attempting to address the criminal justice reform issue. He did the First Step Act. He set up the first police commission since Lyndon Johnson. We've been looking precisely at these issues, and we'll be coming out very shortly with our proposals on this. And he's also advanced opportunity zones in the inner city, and he's pushing for school choice for inner city parents. That's to me the civil rights issue of our era, is giving these parents the wherewithal to educate their children in the best schools possible, and so he is addressing that. I think pulling the police back from these communities would make it far more difficult for these communities to have the equal opportunity and the full participation in the American dream that they deserve.
As you know, there's
It's a lot of implications, but it does sound like a threat. Just because, if not allowing people to regulate themselves, police themselves, judge themselves, convict themselves, taking that power away and then expecting them not to be able to fill it, that's a lose-lose. on our side. So that's a rough deal.
House bill, an effort for police reform from Congress. It includes a few things. I'd like to get your thoughts on it. A national misconduct register for police.
Well, I haven't looked at the proposal, so I'm not exactly sure.
But on the issue of those...
But you know, on issue by issue, I think we have to be... There's a prudent balance to be struck between making sure we can hold wrongdoers accountable. Police is not like sitting in an office, you know, checking boxes. We put these individuals into highly charged, dangerous situations where their own life is at stake, their adrenaline...
I mean, they do a little bit of both, but like... the same situation can pop up when the cops show up to any kind of situation.
One's pumping and so forth, and we have to make sure we treat them fairly in those kinds of circumstances.
Banning chokeholds?
I think we should ban chokeholds, lateral chokeholds, except when it's necessary to meet lethal, you know, unless police officers...
Oh my God. Like, how can you say you can ban chokeholds and then say, except in need of lethal force? What the flying fuck is that? Again, like, I wish I could screenshot this. Can I screenshot this? It's a perfect fucking picture. Shit. It's that Windows key print screen. I don't got that on there, bro. I don't got that on my shit. Okay, maybe I'll just do it down there. Fuck it. That's a great picture. That's a great picture. I think I got it. That's a great picture.
Confronted with potentially lethal force, but I think there's a general agreement among police agencies that we need clearer standards. We have to make sure those standards are trained to, and we have to make sure that there are systems in place that hold officers accountable. I think there's universal agreement on that.
So is that a federal effort? Does that suddenly become a federal training effort?
I think we're going to need a strong federal participation in this effort in helping to set standards.
A lot of talk about Monday, kind of reliving the moment there in Lafayette Park. If you had to do Monday over again, would you do something different?
Based on what I know now, no. On Monday, we were reacting to 3 days of extremely violent demonstrations right across from the White House. A lot of injuries to police officers, arson. Things were so bad that the Secret Service recommended the president go down to the bunker. We can't have that in our country. And
exaggerations.
So the decision was made. We had to move the perimeter 1 block, and that is what we were doing.
Did the president tell you that he was planning on walking over to the church?
No, he didn't tell me. I found out later that afternoon that he might go outside the White House. But as I've said, the decision to actually
so you did find out
was initially made Sunday night by the Park Police.
So you
in
did.
The early morning hours. On Monday, when I arrived, I agreed with the general conception of moving out the perimeter so we could fortify, in the sense of a stronger fencing and so forth, Lafayette Park, and also give some breathing space. And that decision was set in execution at 2 o'clock with all the police tactical chiefs.
But I mean, seeing what has come from it and the image that has at least been perceived, you wouldn't do it differently?
Well, the image has somewhat been created and miscreated.
There it is again. The old fake news. The old fake news. We didn't gas and flashbang all those people for a photo op. That's no fake news.
In the sense that
fake news.
I haven't seen any videos on TV of all the violence that was happening.
Oh, and then he even says he hasn't seen on TV all the violence that has been happening. Now, I know sometimes people don't say what they mean, but when they say sentences, it can be pretty revealing. He knows the violence has been happening. That was the last two words. Has been happening. I think violence definitely was the third word towards the end. He hasn't seen them on TV. They are on TV, but he could have been ignoring them. Has he seen the ones on the internet, though? Because I do believe someone graciously uploaded 5 minutes worth. Like, about as much as a person can stand. It's right there. Nope, it's not there. Get over here. Boom. A terrible montage of police brutality. 5 minutes and 5 seconds of police brutality. Now, if only he was on the other side of this, because then I could just show him this. Because there's no way he hasn't seen at least one of these. So many have gone viral, and he needs to work with the intelligence community. It's a very strange answer. Look, this dude's knees on his neck. This officer recognizes people are watching, and then he moves his knee. Jesus.
That bitch better be on safety. That's all I'm saying.
Alright. There's some in case he hasn't seen any.
You were hit or something, or something was thrown at you?
Well, I did go to the park before the actual operation to move out the perimeter, and I personally saw projectiles thrown, and 2 were thrown at me. And the police officers there and my security detail made me move back because they...
Why? What? I feel like if there was stuff thrown at Bill Barr, I would know. I would know. And then he says that he just found out. Here's one that says Attorney General personally ordered. Barr ordered. And it's even from Fox News. Fox News fucking ratted him out. And he said he didn't know about it. And then he goes on to Fox News and lies about it. This is what I'm talking about, Repubs. You guys gotta give up on these people. They do not care about you. They don't care about telling you the truth. Even if it's like literally a week later. That's 7 days ago. Jesus Christ. They do not respect you.
They said
not in the least bit.
Had been landing in a certain area, things like rocks, bottles thrown.
He had rocks and bottles thrown at him, and there's not a scratch, nor is there a video, because I feel like if there was stuff thrown at you, people would record it. I swear it, Bill. I swear it.
Thrown at me.
You said you wouldn't do anything differently, but the perception of clearing out the park, understanding you made the decision earlier, and then the president walking over, even the visual of
that's funny.
Kind of the group all white, mostly male.
It's because he wanted to clear the park just to move him back.
And said
and it wasn't for the...
That it wasn't a good thing for the president in retrospect. I asked you, would you do anything differently? Would you do anything differently on even the walk over to the church? You were there, so was the defense secretary, so was the chairman of the Joint Chiefs.
Well, it's not...
Oh, yeah, Rosie?
That was a decision for the White House and the president to make. My decision that you asked me about earlier was moving the perimeter 1 block to provide greater security for the White House, and I would do the same. And I don't sit as a critic of, of these kinds of leadership decisions made at the White House, but as I've said, the President of the United States should be able to walk 1 block from the White House out to the Church of Presidents.
Yeah, but does he have to do it that day?
And this canard that this exercise was done to make that possible is totally false.
And then what if he just asked him, like, did you know that members of the church were in the crowd that he gassed and flashbanged? Or actually the crowd that you gassed and flashbanged, since you're the one who wanted to move it a block.
I don't see anything wrong with the president walking over to the church.
The perception is that the president was calling for, I don't know how many, their number is 10,000, but let's say just thousands of active military troops on the ground. Did you push back on the use of the Insurrection Act?
There was no need to push back. I think everyone was on the same page. I think what we were discussing is what would be necessary around the country and in D.C. specifically. And I think everyone agreed that if it became necessary, we could resort to federal troops as a last resort.
There's a lot of people that have been charged with crimes related to the protests that evolved into riots and
looting. Oh my goodness.
To my knowledge, none of the criminal complaints have mentioned Antifa. Why is that?
We have some investigations underway, and very focused investigations on certain individuals that relate to Antifa. But in the initial phase of identifying people and arresting them, they were arrested for crimes that don't require us to identify a particular group or don't necessitate that.
Does Antifa have leaders?
It's a very loosely organized group, and they have sort of a unique or unusual system of communication.
Nice. He slipped up and said Antifa has a unique organization. Then he's like, oops, shit, unusual.
Organization. There are people who can be characterized as leaders in any given situation.
There are people who can be designated as leaders in any given situation. That means we write the laws. You must obey the laws. God, fuck this.
After those people.
There appear to be sources of funding, and we are looking into the sources of funding. And there,
like, how are we supposed to sing in the name when shit is getting like this? Like, in order for this place to run, you need a police state. Like, what?
There is clearly some high degree of organization involved at some of these events, and coordinated tactics that we're seeing, and we're looking into that as well. And some of it relates to Antifa. Some of it relates to groups that act very much like Antifa. As I said, there's a witch's brew of extremist groups that are trying to exploit this situation on all sides.
When you look back at COVID-19 and what has happened, do you think we will conclude that elected officials went too far in shutting down society to the point of trampling Americans' fundamental constitutional rights?
I think given the uncertainty involved...
Lockdown never stopped your rights. Working is not a right. In fact, it's what you have to do. Everybody keeps saying it. Pull yourself up by your bootstraps. Well, if you can't, then the government should tie your fucking laces for you.
And the very
that's how we keep shit together.
Fast pace of the infection, especially in certain areas. The original 30-day or so, and even maybe with some extensions, measures were appropriate.
We got $500 billion a quarter on military. $500 billion. I think it's $1 trillion a year on military. Why can we not pay our people to take time off from work because there's a plague? It's not really a plague, but it's devastating in its own right. But like, god damn it, if we can spend so much money on police who can beat the shit out of us when we're not supposed to be out, then why the fuck can we not spend more money to keep us home?
But I think that as time has gone by, the degree of impingement on fundamental liberties has never been anything like this in the United States.
Thank you, Bill Barr. He admits that they are infringing our rights on a level never seen before. He admits it.
Forbidding people from engaging in their livelihood, telling them to stay home is just sort of a form of house arrest in many places.
Have these protests and demonstrations and what we've seen across the country changed that dynamic?
Well, I think it should, because it raises a fundamental question, which is why should...
I don't think people who had to stay home during lockdown should compare themselves to house arrest either. If you didn't have to go to a Probo meeting, then you really still haven't even suffered at all. You were inconvenienced. You were inconvenienced. And now that you're all coming back to work, I'm inconvenienced because traffic is unfucking believable. Go back home.
Some people who are enjoying their First Amendment rights by going out and protesting
been essential this whole time.
Have broader rights than other people who may want to exercise their, for example, religious First Amendment rights and go to church, as long as social distancing rules and things like that are complied with.
There's a report that the U.S. has officially demanded Britain hand over Prince Andrew to be quizzed about his links to the billionaire pedophile Jeffrey Epstein. Is that true?
Well, I don't think it's a question of handing him over. I think it's just a question of having him provide some evidence. But beyond that, I'm not going to comment.
So extradition?
No.
Just
no.
Asking for
evidence.
Evidence.
Yeah.
That case is still in.
We're not gonna extradite Prince Andrew. No, we're not gonna keep him in a British jail for shit. How long has Julian Assange been locked up? How fucking long? Oh shit, it's been a year. Yeah, it's been a year. And they're quietly, subtly, and softly asking Prince Andrew for his evidence in relationship with Jeffrey Epstein. More likely to exonerate him or acquit him or just absolve him of any crimes or sins and just move on with our lives as if nothing ever happened.
In process, you've commented on the
Surprise.
death of Epstein. You're convinced that he committed suicide. Mm-hmm. Is there more to come from that investigation into that?
There might be more to come, but I don't think anything that would change that conclusion.
What's your definition of law and order?
The real task in framing a government is to have a government that is capable of governing, strong enough to govern.
What is his definition of govern? So govern is obviously just telling people what to do. Let's see what like the Webster dictionary is straight up for governing, because he says that a government's primo job is to govern. But when he said govern, he put his hands out like some weird fucking puppet master. Again, I want to take another screenshot because he looks like he when he says govern, it looks like he's saying control. Look at him. He's staring at his hands.
That is capable of governing, strong enough to govern.
Keep your hands out.
Not so strong that it abridges the rights of the people.
It's strong enough to govern, but not strong enough to abridge the rights of the people. The definition of govern is conduct the policy, actions, and affairs of a state, organization, or people. Of a word. Require that? Another word? Okay, wow. It actually has its own definition and grammar. So, verb. Conduct the policy, actions, and affairs of a state, organization, or people. Okay. Well, honestly, we can still see that in a difference of understandings of what government should do. I don't think governments should focus so much on people. I think we're closing in on people and we're opening up corporations, kind of just like a pendulum swing from 1945. Or even from when Nixon started the EPA, which they might have saw as a slight against their CO2 emissions and what have you, oil drilling. Maybe it was a bargaining power for the United States. It's a really cynical side to look at that, but maybe it was just bargaining power.
But you also have to have controls on that power.
You have to have power, and you also have to have controls on that power. I mean, I agree, but like, again, me and him probably don't see in the same context. I think the power should be in the people, and the controls of that power, again, should be in the people. I think he says that the power should be in the hands of the president, and the control of those powers should be in the hands of the people. Now, that's what he would say in rhetoric, but how does that make any sense? How do you have controls of the power on the president? Oh, well, you vote for him. Well, is that really that much power? Because he's commander-in-chief, and so regardless of my vote, he's going to run the military. And I mean, depending on military support, if you look at police support right now, like, the police are really backing Trump because he's, opened the floodgates for a lot of things that they've wanted to do for a while. But the military is not showing the same sentiment, and I'm glad for that.
In the case of the government, for example, excessive police force, law and order means that the government is bound by law and people have to be accountable for abusing their power.
This is unprecedented to have.
People have to be held accountable for abusing their power, and yet he worked his damn hardest to cover up the Mueller investigation and Ukraine. He worked hard on that.
Pandemic with lockdowns, and then
I don't even know what else he's hiding, though.
Event with protests across the country. We've never really seen anything like it.
That's right. Last time I was AG, which was not for that long a period, I had been deputy before that. Someone showed me a list of all the crises we handled at that time, and I thought, wow, it was a very eventful period, but nothing like we're seeing today.
Mr. Attorney General.
It's weird that he can talk about like how there's never been so many crises. Like, I was deputy attorney general back then, and I'm looking at the list, and I'm like, that's a lot of crises, but not compared to now. And he ends it with this weird goonish smile.
A list of all the crises we handled at that time, and I thought, wow, it was a very
eventful
period, but
he calls crises eventful.
Nothing like we're seeing today.
I get that sentiment, but that creepy smile that ends right there. Nothing like we see today. That smile right there at the end of it. That's just the cherry on the let 'em eat cake right there.
Mr. Attorney General, thank you very much for the time.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Man, I just ate a lot of shit, and now my stomach does not feel good. Are you fucking serious? He gets calls for defunding. And rather than sit with the protesters who are addressing their grievances in the street, so says the most important paper in the land, and he holds a round table with law enforcement. I don't even know if I want to watch this. It's so long, and then I just like reading that headline. I'm hurt. We literally have the worst president. That's some rough shit. Might have to watch that one, though. Re-education, that dude. That's very funny. Cristobal not having it. Can I watch this video now?
Sergeant, we'll be state 5 in a couple of seconds.
Ooh.
Right, I've got to go to quite a serious incident. The reason I stopped you is when you came out of the barns. Yeah. No offence to you, but you're a black male, okay? I'm not.
The reason why I stopped you, and no offence at all, but you're a black man.
Lie to you.
So it's racist when you stop me.
I'm not saying that at all. The reason I've stopped you, I'll explain if you let me finish. Yeah. All right. In this area, we have a number of drug dealers. I'm not saying you're a drug dealer. They come.
In this area, we have a number of drug dealers.
But from other areas that don't live anywhere around here.
I live here.
You're black, and we have a lot of drug dealers that come up here. Do you know why I stopped you? Well, let me explain. You're black, and you're not normally around.
I know you might know that, but I don't because I've never met you before. Okay? So the reason...
Wait.
I stopped you is because I haven't seen you before, and I've been a local officer for a long time here. So I've turned round, and then when we came out to Kings Avenue, your car had disappeared. I
hadn't disappeared because I saw you in the mirror actually. Because you come out.
We saw you go up Kings Avenue, and we went up Kings Avenue, and then we couldn't see your vehicle. So whether you went off us down a side street or not, I don't know. Okay.
Sorry to interrupt. Have you got any ID on you? Just for your details on, just so I can ID, mate. That's brilliant.
Did you didn't hear that for us, did you? No. Industrial accident at Wild Tracks, life-changing injuries they want us to go to.
Okay, no worries. Who wants to see it?
I'll take it, sir. Thank you very much. Just explain why we stopped you. So for me, a little bit, that seems a little bit strange sometimes. That I drive past the car and then sometimes it disappears. No offence to you. You might have been just going to...
It's strange that sometimes I drive past a car and then it disappears. So not only were you black, but your car also moved.
See a friend, I've got no idea, because I don't know you until I stop and ask. Alright? Then when we've done a
Not racist, by the way.
little bit of a drive around through that estate, we've then seen your car again on Kings Avenue, and that's why we pulled you over, just to see what you're up to, basically. I'm not accusing you of being a drug dealer, I'm not accusing you of being a criminal, but if I don't stop people, how can I do my job?
Is what you did.
Yeah, but not because I'm racist, but because in this area we have a number of people that come up to this area that are young black males that deal drugs.
So if I was white, you wouldn't have stopped me.
No, I stopped lots of white people.
But if I was white, you wouldn't have stopped me.
Yes, I would have done.
You would have stopped me if I was white. Even though I drove past you,
if you're accusing me of being a racist,
I'm not accusing you of being racist.
Right. This cop just doesn't understand that profiling is racism.
Asking you a question. If I drove past you, if I was a white person, I drove past you, you wouldn't have turned around and come after me, would you?
Maybe not today, but
No,
I'm not racist. I stop more white people than I ever stop black people.
But you're just proving it, but haven't you? If I was white and I drove past you, you would not have turned around. But if that's not a black person that drove past you,
yeah, but he said that he stops more white people than he stops black people. But how many white people do you stop for being black? You literally told this. God damn it.
I've explained to you why I've stopped you, okay? I wouldn't be doing my job if I didn't stop you.
He did a horrible job, but he tried.
And we have young black males in this area that come from outside of Cambridgeshire that deal drugs. I'm not suggesting.
But then I don't know how like pullover laws work in the UK. I don't think that's justified at all. And I feel like there's another person that needs to lose their responsible, authoritative job. God. I don't think any human should have power. I think power was a bad idea. We should definitely just go back to surviving, hunting, gathering, and just fuck off society, man. And fuck antibiotics. Like, fuck all this shit. Here's a clip in which Sean Hannity tries to compare what George Floyd went through to what President Trump went through with the special counsel's investigation.
Exposed how corrupt, high-ranking law enforcement officials tried to rig an election and destroy Donald Trump at all costs, to overturn an election. Even the president...
I was going to say rig an election. Like, you can't rig an election after it happened.
himself, it's not the same thing as what happened to George Floyd, but it's horrific. He was a victim of crooked cops.
I'm not saying it's the same thing as George Floyd. Nobody's saying it's the same thing as George Floyd. This situation and the situation with George Floyd are nothing alike. But this is horrifying. Whew. I might turn into a racist by the end of this because white people
now,
be tested.
Again, not the same circumstances. I'm not making any comparison. A bad cop is a bad cop. And by all means, by the way, the damage was real to the country. The damage in Minneapolis is real to the country. And that the case, what was done in George Floyd case, should never happen. Exposed how corrupt, high-ranking law enforcement officials tried to rig an election.
All right, let's go in here. Oh yeah, he responded to fucking shit to me. Oh my god, he has all 11 of my notifications. I said one thing to this dude. I got 11 notifications. This is why I don't fuck with conspiracy theories. And then I touch one of them and it makes me crazy. I don't even know which one's the first one. Or I don't even remember what I said. Jesus fucking Christ. 11 different tweets. Let's get it. Oh, man. I should just not respond to any of them. All right. Yeah, see? There it is. There's one. Okay, I said two things to him. Okay. All right. First thing, I think that you and many are missing the entire point. I'm going to fathom a guess that anyone that follows the movement... Oh, here's where it all started. Ice Cube, unfortunately, retweeted a QAnon thing. And then everybody started telling him it's part of QAnon. And then he said, stop telling me about QAnon. I don't know what the fuck that is. Same thing Ice-T happened like a year ago. Like, we go through these fucking cycles. First Ice-T, then Ice Cube. Next it's going to be Vanilla Ice. There's not much ice left. But Ice Cube got bombarded. And I thought that was fucking hilarious. And this Patriot Q is going around talking mad shit to everybody. And I had two things to say to him. First, I think that you and many are missing the entire point. I'm going to fathom a guess that anyone that follows the movement, period, the corona hoax... Oh, wait. Anyone that follows the movement pinned the corona hoax from the gate. Q never said shit about it. That's what it's all about. Not blindly following anything. Hashtag where we go one, we go all. I said by never saying anything about it doesn't mean that Q doesn't... Wait. Oh, wow. Ooh, actually, I didn't even respond to him with a coherent tweet on that one. So, point to him. Point to him. I fucked that tweet up bad. Alright. But this is the one that he responded to the most right here. So, he said, where did he attacks somebody up here with verbal abuse, if you can call it that. QAnon lady posts a picture that says, QAnon is the only cult that brainwashes you to think for yourself. I can't even explain how ass backwards all of that is. Like that's a paradox. You're a fucking Jerry at that point. Believing every word posted on a Chan site by a dude who can't even keep a consistent trip code is not thinking for yourself by any stretch of imagination. That was Mike Wise. Mike Wise going in to shut up. Short bus. That's when Patriot Q steps in. I think that you and many are missing the entire point. I'm going to fathom a guess that anyone that follows the movement, oh yeah, the whole thing about pinned corona. And then he said, this dude responds and says, y'all think Trump is an angel when he's a sociopathic narcissist. And they do believe he is a prophet sent from God. The guy says, personal opinion insults are sure to help sway people who question everything. Does that mean that there's personal fact insults? Is that a thing? Anyways, there's things Trump does that I question. Saudi Arabia arms sales among them. He doesn't like that Trump sells guns to Muslims. But not being politically correct doesn't make him Hitler. If he was, you wouldn't be able to say shit like that. Wake up. Evan G. holding strong. He wants to use the U.S. military to crush protesters. True. He hid in a bunker. True. And put a Boss Sing Say of fences around the White House? I had heard about that, but I'm not familiar with the fascist undertones of that. I've heard of it. He's a coward, narcissist, man-child. Those are all the qualities that Hitler had as well. Coward, narcissist, man-child. Yes. He had those qualities as well. Patriot Q responds, protesters and people throwing bricks, frozen water bottles. Holy shit. People had frozen water bottles. I had no idea. I'm not saying that's clever or anybody should use that, but compared to a rubber baton, I don't know, man. I don't know if that... Setting shit on fire and damaging property are not the same. The National Guard is not a part of the military. Who's awake? National Guard is a part of the military. It's not part of the federal military. That was the state military, but it's still the military. It's an off branch of the army, is it not? Am I lost on that? Do I know anything about this land that I so happen to inhabit with inalienable rights? I don't know. But we came here to find out. do Army National Guard. Go fuck myself. All right, that was super easy. This dude is a patriot as fuck because he just believes anything. Anything his country tells him, he's patriotic about it. Only because cops are violent psychopaths. That's Evan G. showing a video proof there's more bad police than you think. Yeah, it's not a good video. It's very dark. There are a lot more than you think. Patriot Q responds, I'm not saying some police departments aren't out of control with militarized tactics. And I wonder how many he thinks that is. He then says, how is that Trump's fault? He said, shoot him. When the looting starts, the shooting starts. He said at a police conference once that he doesn't like it when police put their hands on top of the head of the criminals or the suspects when they put them in the back of the vehicle. He said, remove the hand. Don't be afraid to be a little rough. That's out there. So that's how it's Trump's fault. When Democrat mayors order police to stand down and rioters continue to burn and loot, who is to protect the innocent public? When Democrat mayors order police to stand down and rioters continue to burn and loot, who is to protect the innocent public? He has another misconstrued conception of what happened. I mean, the cops weren't able to be everywhere that there was chaos. They had to be in their sector creating their own. If there weren't cops around when all that looting and all that activity was happening, it's because they were in another area tear gassing, flashbanging, and brutalizing other people. It's a big city. I don't understand. And then he repeats himself yet again. National Guard is not U.S. military. Then Evan G. just repeats himself as well, because Patriot Q doesn't get it. Patriot Q still doesn't get it. Most police aren't bad people. You can't honestly think the police sent the peaceful protesters home, but let the rioters go crazy just so they could shoot pepper spray canisters at them. They're the same people, Patriot. There are some people that did go home beforehand, but there were people there all day. And so at that point, they did not discriminate between the people who were there during the day and then those who were after the curfew. They just took down everybody that was there after the curfew, and that was the excuse to break up peaceful protests. It's very I keep repeating myself. Evan G says, then where the fuck are they in all those police violence videos? Whoop. These good police are nowhere to be found when police are terrorizing the public. Patriot Q does not refute that fact. He just says disbanding police will stop crime like drug laws stop drug use. Fact. I said not a fact. You don't believe in facts. You're a conspiracy theorist with slightly libertarian leanings. You believe in narratives that have to be confirmed by facts. You either twist or completely fabricate in order to prove your narrative, which I can certainly tell you is a lie. And it begins. Not so much. Gotta love the tolerance from the liberal community. Conspiracy theorist gets thrown around like it hurts. I wasn't trying to insult you at any point. These are all just input in the fact that it's not a fact. You don't believe in facts because you believe in a conspiracy theory. In order to believe in a conspiracy theory, you don't believe in facts. Okay. And then the guy says, don't dispute anything with evidence. Just claim it's not a fact. What narrative exactly is a lie? If you have to ask, you don't know, dude. And I didn't respond to him yet. He's still going. When did I ever say that? To the contrary, I said not all cops are bad. Not all are the same as bad cops don't exist. You hear what you want to hear. At least you have... Or at least you heavily minimize the bad cop problem, saying the protesters are all looters and repeating Fox News propaganda. I never said that either. Again, hearing what you want to hear. Protesting peacefully is a fundamental right that I completely agree with. Riots, mob, violence, and destruction of property must be stopped. What what is the difference between riots, mob violence, and destruction of property? Because he just he repeated himself 3 times to say that these things must be stopped with non-lethal force, if necessary. But you know, our non-lethal rounds have been closely killing people, and a push put a man in a coma. Maybe the police could stop them if they weren't too busy gassing and beating on peaceful protesters. Maybe if the police acted friendly with the protesters, they could team up and stop the looters. They didn't gas peaceful protesters. The motherfuckers were throwing bricks and frozen water bottles, my lord. Oh my god. A guy who was not at the protest. I don't believe he was at the protest because he is just repeating literally everything I just listened to Bill Barr talk about. And Bill Barr wasn't at the protest either. Alright, those weren't all for me, so I'm glad. I'm glad. Wow. Hell yeah. Yeah, defund. Alright. Man, Trump is trending fucking hard right now. A senior Trump official is anonymously telling the Miami Herald that unspecified intelligence links the Maduro regime to George Floyd protests, but refuses to provide any evidence or specificity. What? It's interesting how this stuff gets piped into the South Florida media market, but strangely nowhere else. I guess, like, for conspiracy theories, all you really have to do is just, like, tell one state, right? And then, like, social media just does the rest of the work for you. Right? You just have it in one newspaper in one state, and then social media just takes over. What do you got to worry about at that point? White House claims violence incited at Floyd protests linked to Venezuela's Maduro. Dude, they're so crippled by... How the fuck is Maduro going to be able to afford this? They are literally one of the poorest countries right now. Their money is so inflated, we're not even taking it. Jesus fucking Christ. Oh, it's part of the socialist thing, isn't it? It's because he's a socialist. Said Friday it has information that individuals linked to Venezuelan leader Nicolas Maduro have incited violence at protests in the United States spurred by George Floyd's death. And, you know, next thing you know, they're going to take that picture from Palestine, that mural that they painted of George Floyd, and say that they incited violence in the United States. United States Senator Rick Scott also highlighted a similar report earlier in the week, promising Wednesday on Twitter that the U.S. government would crack down on any operatives tied to Latin American dictators who instigate conflict in Miami. Oh my God. Whew. Man, they are licking that boot clean, dude, getting in between the cracks. Neither offered proof of the allegations, and the White House declined to discuss non-open source information. I mean, how is that really going to be any driving force for you to invade Venezuela? We are aware of efforts by individuals linked to America's adversaries, including the illegitimate regime of Venezuela's Nicolas Maduro, to instigate conflict, help incite violence, and divide Americans by exploiting peaceful protests. It's the Russia thing that Republicans do, but we're blaming like the poorest country in the world. Not the poorest, but you know. Let's see. Where Venezuela at? Because I know its money is so inflated, like nobody fucking with Venezuela. He created their own money too, that like just fucking inflated it even harder and made it, I think it was off the gold standard as well, making that even harder. They're in a shitty situation. And did I mention that we're sanctioning the shit out of them? Like, COVID's pretty devastating. The fact that they can't afford even medical care. AMC expects theaters to be fully open by July. Gross. I don't want to be in there and hear one single sneeze. Not one. I mean, this is the time to capitalize on drive-ins, if anything. Like, fuck yeah. Get your own car, your own space from those gross germ carriers. The United States is among the wealthiest in the world. We got great credit. I don't know if we're wealthy, but we got pretty good credit. Let's see, 25, 24, Zimbabwe, Mali. So it's not in the poorest of poors. Oof. Jesus Christ, bro. When your GDP is the size of fucking Mike Bloomberg's bank account, you are the 16th poorest nation in the world. You know, researching can really do a number on the fucking brain curves. How poor is Venezuela is so poor. How poor is it? I need the indexes. Why? One of the top Googles is why is Venezuela poor? Okay. Yeah, they have hyperinflation. I need a list of poor capitalist countries. I just need countries. What do you mean in Europe and United States and all that shit? Just whatever. I should just type it out. By GDP? I guess. Yeah. Liberia. Sitting at per capita $710. Oh my god, dude. Democratic Republic of Congo. These are rough. I think these are all African nations as well. Probably rich in resources and exploitation at the same damn time. All right, man. I needed a list. That's really all I came here for. I'm sorry for barging into your website like this, but I just needed to know where Venezuela is on this list. All right, we're starting to get some numbers. Boom. Tuvalu starts hitting some numbers, like all the way down there. They just don't have the information from these countries. I can imagine because their infrastructure is fucked. All right. Venezuela, where you at? Greenland. No way. Is Greenland doing worse than Venezuela? Holy shit. It's a strange world we live in. Palestine does better than fucking North Korea? Nah. Yeah, no. North Korea is definitely doing better than Palestine. I had that backwards. All right, I understand what I'm looking at now. Nope. Uzbekistan. Doing better than Myanmar. It's not a competition. Damn, dude. Ukraine barely beating out Puerto Rico. Maybe if we made it a state, it wouldn't be so fucking close to Ukraine. Ooh, Kazakhstan. Kazakhstan's doing better than Puerto Rico? Fuck out of here. There's Venezuela. Just above Pakistan. Which, I mean, Pakistan is a nuclear power somehow, so it's impressive. A little bit better than Colombia, Egypt. I didn't know Egypt was that far. Vietnam, huh? Except I feel like Vietnam's infrastructure is doing a lot better for what they have. But I guess Venezuela is not as poor as I thought. Because, yeah, it doesn't seem like they've been able to really overthrow it economically. They just have made it living there, like the material conditions, a lot worse. Sure do learn. Something every time. But that's dark. Maduro, please. I haven't gotten my check yet. I hear you are the one funding these protests, and I still haven't gotten my check. So, if you see this, I will... Well, you know the address. And more. Are we in hell? Alright. Trump vilifies elderly protester as his campaign struggles to relaunch. That's funny. He's only going to get worse. He wants to get rid of Mark Esper. That's weird. And fair out in the country, and the challenge for the president is to speak directly to it. If only. And if only he wouldn't be racist when he did. Okay, now I'm just... This reached the level of nonsense. I don't know if Marco Rubio's another good one to listen to either. We don't have very many leaders to look forward to. All right, dude. I was excited about this one. Oh, yeah.
Good evening and welcome to Tucker Carlson tonight. We had a very long open yesterday.
I never got a welcome from Tucker before.
Half of last night's show telling you about the rise of left-wing mobs in this country and the threat they pose to all of us. We felt it was that important. We told...
The rise of left-wing mobs. Now, it's important to note that evangelical douchebag and fascist Ted Cruz proposed a bill to make Antifa and quote-unquote left-wing groups terrorist organizations. That includes like Greenpeace, Extinction Rebellion. Let's see. Well, we could say George Soros just for fun in his Open Society Foundation, since it's openly liberal, which is quote unquote left wing. BLM is also a left wing movement. IWW, left wing group. So I mean, having this left wing mob, they're priming people for, well, I mean, they've been doing it for so long. Fox is the opposition party because they stand oppositional to progress, which is the whole point of the United States. It says in the fucking Constitution, towards a more perfect union. More perfect. But what they see as more perfect is more conformity, more Robotniks. At least that's what I get from this haircut and clean shave. Like, how can you be that clean cut? Who cleaned your room? Because you obviously have so much time to clean yourself.
No matter
That was a
what they're
weird
claiming on television or how
diss.
loudly they are claiming
That was a
it,
sad
their
diss.
main goal is
And it's
power. It always is.
It's right
In order
there.
to seize that power, they will do literally anything, whatever it takes. They'll silence you, they'll hurt you, they'll burn your...
They'll silence you with all the laws that they have, all these left-wing mob laws that we have. We'll silence you.
And they're doing all of that now. You're watching it. So the question is, how should you respond to this? And the answer is with courage. You're an American. You live in a free country. You have nothing to be ashamed of. You don't have to apologize for crimes you did not commit.
That's the whole just perpetuation of white supremacy by not having at least a little bit of white guilt in there for all the white supremacy that just keeps happening.
You have the absolute right to say exactly what you believe is true. That is your...
You have the right to say exactly what you believe is true. But what they're trying to take away is the right to refute lies. Because what you believe is true tends to be a lie because you had to believe it. And that's the thing about all these constructs and myths and narratives that we keep building, is that essentially they're all lies. Down to the very root of it. So I just led this to a dead end for Tucker Carlson because his narrative wants me to bash left-wing mobs, and my narrative wants the whole globe to just fucking calm down, bro. Smoke some herb, maybe take a little DMT, or don't, because that's against the law. But what I'm saying is if you find DMT in video games, just take it. That's the point I wanted to make. That is my position to fight off Tucker Carlson's position. Take video game DMT.
Your birthright. Now is the time to affirm that right out loud. When enough decent people rise from their knees and stand down the mob evaporates.
When enough people rise from their knees, were you guys kneeling or were you praying?
These people are not warriors, they are vampires. They melt in the light. When we show them we are not afraid, they go away. That's what we told you last night. Minutes after we said that, the mob came for us.
I didn't see that last night.
They spent the last 24 hours trying to force this show off the air for good. They won't succeed in that, thankfully.
Did you say some racist shit last night?
Brave companies in America, and they're not intimidated. We're grateful for that. But the whole thing did get us thinking that we should be more specific about who this mob is and what they're doing. Who are the people trying to take over your country, cancel your rights, eliminate our centuries-long tradition?
It's funny how much like this sounds like it's going to be investigative journalism, but it's not. It's not. You should know immediately that you're watching Tucker Carlson tonight, and it's not investigative at all. There was no investigation done. There was a boardroom of propagandist spectacles looking at pieces of paper, deciding what they're going to tell the American people today. Absolutely no investigation.
Of tolerance, yes, tolerance, and of free expression. And the truth is, we often don't know their names. They're mostly
I'm gonna have to do this.
Political agitators who exist primarily online. They're trolls who thrive on cruelty. And yet suddenly they have immense power over all of us. Weak leaders now reflexively bow to their demands, no matter what those demands are. Why is that? What's changed? Well, that's a much longer conversation. We probably ought to do an entire show on that topic, and if the news ever calms down long enough,
you could right now.
Terms,
it's your show.
We will do that. But for now, it's enough to say that the country's defenses have been badly weakened by decades of relentless propaganda, all of it designed to make us feel that we have no right to stand up for ourselves, to stand up for our country. We are too sinful to resist. We deserve whatever we get. Shut up and take it, America. It's been days showing you examples.
That's funny because the shut up and take it America is like when I watch the police brutality videos, not stop being racist. Do you see the two narratives that are juxtaposed? Stop being racist, that's stomping on my rights. Police brutality, that's stomping on my rights. But somehow these are juxtaposed to each other, that these are the oppositions. These are the two sides to this. Either I can fight the people who are telling me to stop being racist, or I can fight the police brutality. It's up to the individual. But Tucker Carlson is about to convince you why you should choose his side.
Examples of this, but here's just the very latest. It's from CNN over the weekend.
Yeah. Oh my God, he gonna talk shit about Elmo right now, but oh my God, there's that picture of Elmo like in the protest though, and the video of Elmo dancing at the protest though. I like where this is going.
I'm bringing this sign to the protest at the community center later.
Wow. They look upset. Are the protesters sad?
They are sad and upset, and they have every right to be, Elmo. People are upset because racism is a huge problem in our country. Across the country, people of color, especially in the black community, are being treated unfairly because of how they look.
Children's show. Got that, Bobby? America is a very bad place, and it's your fault. So no matter what
That's not what he said at all.
happens, no matter what they do to you when you grow up, you have no right to complain. That's the message, and it starts very young.
If Bobby being himself is being racist, just stop being racist, and you can be whatever you want to be. Like, there's just certain things that human beings shouldn't be. We shouldn't be murderers. We shouldn't be thievy thieves. And we shouldn't be racist. I mean, like, does God have to put it on a fucking stone?
Where does it end up? Exactly, we're finding out. Here's where it ends up. Alexander Katai is a Serbian soccer player who, until the other day, played professionally for the Galaxy in Los Angeles. Last week, Katai's wife posted criticism online of the looters she was watching wreck Minneapolis. A lot of people felt that way. Katai's wife wrote in Serbian when she speaks, and yet someone noticed them anyway and then attacked her for writing them. She deleted the post very quickly, but it was too late. Now, we should be clear that her husband, the soccer player, may not even have known that she wrote the posts. His wife was in Chicago when she wrote them. He was practicing with his team in Los Angeles, but it didn't matter. Protesters dutifully arrived at the stadium to call for his firing. So the management of the LA Galaxy forced Katai to apologize for his wife and then to denounce her. Denounce his own wife. Then they made him endorse Black Lives Matter, which he did, and then they fired him anyway, and then they attacked him on his way out.
I don't see any proof of this. He's saying a lot of things, and I don't know anything about this story, and he's not providing any sources whatsoever. And so, you know, if your grandma and grandpa watching him every night, of course you're going to be like, oh, those sons of bitches. But like, if you're a youngin' and you just came into this world, how can you not question the information that's been throwing at you without any sources whatsoever, and then call yourself a free thinker? He literally is just holding a picture of this soccer player and telling his life story. Like, show something. So some kind of article, some kind of video, anything. What's his name? I don't even know his fucking name at this point. It's not even up on the fucking screen.
Team in Los Angeles, but it didn't matter. Protesters dutifully arrived online of the looters she was watching, and it's your fault. So no matter what happens, no matter what they do to you when you grow up, you have no right to complain.
That's the thing about Tucker and fucking Ben too, is that they like do these things where they make points, make points, make points, make points, make points. They don't make point, diverge, divulge. They make point, make point, make point, make point, conclusion. That's not how you form an argument. That's just how you tell people what to believe. That's just forcing your beliefs on people. In an authoritative, fake journalist way. It's weird to call Fox fake news because it's a Trump slogan, but if there is one. Okay, what's her name?
That's the message, and it starts very young. Where does it end up? Exactly, we're finding out. Here's where it ends up. Alexander Katai is a Serbian soccer player who, until
Alexander
played
Katai
professionally for the Galaxy in Los Angeles. Last week, Katai's wife posted criticism online of the looters she was watching wreck Minneapolis. A lot of people felt that way. Katai's wife wrote in Serbian when she speaks, and yet someone noticed them anyway and then attacked her for writing them. She deleted the post very quickly, but it was too late. Now we should...
All right, from Button Mail, LA Galaxy will release Alexander Katai after his wife's racist comments on social media. Football news. got a wonderful beard. Alexander Katai started both MLS matches before the season ended. Alexander Katai was released in the LA Galaxy 2 days after the club became aware of the racist comments his wife posted on social media. In the franchise, the MLS franchise announced a decision to say goodbye to their new Serbian winger on Friday in one of the news offerings. It's like a... Oh man, I forgot that one dude's name that wasn't very funny. It's that one comedian who got like hired on to SNL and then got kicked off because he said some really racist shit. I like jokes about race, but like those were just racist comments. Like you can't be a comedian and then just say some racist shit and be like, I was joking. It's not how it works. That's undercover racism. On Wednesday, commented comments by T. Katai, who posted a photo on Instagram with a caption written in Serbian, urging police to kill protesters. Another referring to the protesters as a disgusting animal. And a third sharing racist memes. Still no sources on any of these posts, but I'll take their word for it. There's absolutely no sources in this article either. What the fuck am I even doing here? Bounce. Alright, try this one. I haven't heard of any of these fucking... Oh, news break. There we go. I've heard of these people, fuck. Alright. It's not on very many major news outlets, though, which is strange. And then it goes into another article that has no sources. Dude. You can't take me to a WordPress article that has no sources. Is this story made up right now? Tucker, don't upload your shit on the internet, because it's like, we can pause it. That's just advice. Alright, I haven't heard of any of these, and then for some reason Saudi Arabia has talked about it, but I don't see shit from CNN or anybody else. That's weird. That's really weird. Alright, news. I'm gonna try one more time. Nope. 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 I wonder if fucking Snopes has covered it. There it is. CBS Los Angeles. Thank God. Jesus. In one of the most egregious posts, T. Katai posted a picture of a looter holding a shoebox with the caption, Black Nikes Matter. Post has been deleted. I mean, it's pretty clever and racist. So, they agreed to part ways. So they didn't force him out, and I don't see anybody saying that he was forced to denounce. The Galaxy Wednesday night issued a statement denouncing her statements. Katai himself also posted an apology on his Instagram page in which he called his wife's comments unacceptable and added that her views are not ones I share and are not tolerated in my family. So... who pressured him, Tucker, for him to denounce his wife, as you say? Because I feel like he's just criticizing his wife, being like, yo, what the fuck? Ooh, the Daily Mail put their hat in the ring. How did they spin it? Let me see real quick. How do y'all spin it? His wife on social media that called for protests. They released him from his contract. Blah, blah, blah. Racist and violent posts. We don't even know about the violent posts. We've seen the racist ones. Oh, it says kill the shit. Kill the slaves? that what it says? I'm pretty sure Serbia's got its own race problems going on. Looted with boxes of Nike shows a caption black Nike man. So CBS Los Angeles says it was a two-way street, and Daily Mail says it was a one-way street. See, it's this type of shit that everybody decides to put what information they want to, or whether or not. That's a part of the problem. 29-year-old joined the Galaxy in December after spending his first 2 MLS. Blah, 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 blah. I don't see anything about him, like, anybody forcing him. Oh, here's the posts made by my wife, T. Katai, on her social media platforms were unacceptable. These views are not ones that I share and are not tolerated in my family. Racism, particularly toward the black community, is not only prevalent in the United States and Europe, but across the globe. Why did nobody else include his full post either? Come on. Strongly condemn white supremacy, racism, and violence towards people of color. Black Lives Matter. This is a mistake from my family, and I will take full responsibility. Oh, he didn't even denounce his wife that much. He said it's unacceptable, and his family's not a part of that shit. And also, he takes full responsibility. He ensures that his family and he will take necessary actions, learn, understand, and listen and support the black community. I understand that it will take time to earn back the support of the people of Los Angeles. Well, shit, bro. Go ahead, Tuck.
It should be clear that her husband, the soccer player, may not even have known that she wrote the posts. His wife was in Chicago when she wrote them. He was practicing with his team in Los Angeles. But it didn't matter. Protesters dutifully arrived at the stadium to call for his firing. So the management of the LA Galaxy forced Katai to apologize for his wife and then to denounce her. Denounce his own wife. Then they made him endorse Black Lives Matter, which he did, and then they fired him anyway.
They said that Tucker said that they made him endorse Black Lives Matter. There's an evil cabal conspiracy that BLM is here to overthrow all white people for the Jews. Just so you know.
Attacked him on his way out for something he didn't even do and may not even have known about, that was written in a language almost nobody in America understands.
Just because it was written in Serbian, I mean, I think you're missing the point, Tuck, that it was, pointed at Americans. That specific language was pointed at Americans. I think you should be outraged that somebody would say something about your fellow citizen like that. I am.
That's what happened. The team's president, Chris Klein, sounded pleased by the whole thing. Quote, in the end, he said, we have to look at what the club stands for and who we are. Who we are. It's a good question, actually. Who are we? Well, at this point, we're becoming North Korea.
This man apologized at his own free will because he was already released from the LA Galaxy. Maybe it was so he can get a job somewhere else. Maybe. I'll take the little jadedness for a second there, Tuck. But, we are not North Korea because the guy apologized to save his career. You will do the same thing when you get caught for sexual harassment. Maybe. I doubt it. You guys don't apologize much.
Korea. We now believe in blood guilt. We punish people for the sins of their relatives. We don't allow individuals to have private thoughts. We hurt anyone who disagrees with orthodoxy. We demand that the innocent plead guilty to things we know they didn't do and then read their confessions in public to prove they've been re-educated. And then we brag about doing all of this.
What?
Obviously something terrible.
What? Who forced him to do it? LA Galaxy? Because I didn't see LA Galaxy bragging that they got the man to apologize for his racist wife.
Has descended on
what if she wasn't willing to apologize and he was?
America. And it's easy to see if you
It's
stand
a weird position to take.
Terrible ideas suddenly have free reign. Why? Because no one pushes back. Those ideas are met with supine weakness. You've seen it happen 1,000 times. Some professional activist says something crazy and destructive because that's what professional activists do, always. Defund the police!
Can that be my ringtone?
Destructive because that's what professional activists do, always. Defund the police!
I feel like I know what to do. I know what to do. I know how to save that. I know what to do. Oh my god. I'm too high to explain how funny that is to you. Holy shit.
Up. Mirror Force. It's kind of risky here, but I summon these two, and then I do Spear Shark, and then I...
Oop, wrong one. That's the wrong menu. It's the mirror effect. Dude. Yeah, buddy. Alright. Alright, Tucker, it's time to shine. I'm gonna have to go quiet on this, though.
To disagree. So the rhetoric gets even crazier and more destructive. Kill the police. So the rhetoric gets even crazier and more destructive. Kill the police. So the rhetoric gets even crazier and more destructive. Kill the police. So
Man, that's awesome.
disagree. So the rhetoric gets even crazier and more destructive. Kill the police. So the rhetoric gets even crazier and UCLA is now investigating a professor. What next? Gets even crazier and UCLA is now investigating a professor.
All right, this is pretty sloppy.
UCLA is now investigating a professor.
All right, this is pretty sloppy.
UCLA is now investigating.
Dude, I'm gonna get it. I'm gonna get it. I'm gonna get it. I don't really give a fuck. All right, where are you at?
Whole thing. Quote, in the end, to anyone who disagrees with orthodoxy, we demand that the innocent plead guilty to things we know they didn't do and then read their confessions in public to prove they've been re-educated. And then we brag about doing all of this. Obviously, something terrifying has descended on America, and it's easy to see if you stand back what has happened. Terrible ideas suddenly have free reign. Why? Because no one pushes back. Those ideas are met with supine weakness. You've seen it happen 1,000 times. Some professional activist says something crazy and destructive because that's what professional activists do, always. Defund the...
There it is.
says something crazy and destructive because that's what professional activists do, always. Defund the police! Crazy and destructive because what's changed, what's brand new, is that no one in charge has the stones to disagree. So the rhetoric gets even crazier and more destructive. Kill the police! Okay, what next? UCLA is now investigating a professor for the crime of reading Martin Luther King's letter from Birmingham jail out loud. Meanwhile, also at UCLA, another professor called Gordon Klein is under police protection tonight. What did Gordon Klein do wrong? Well, when minority students asked to be exempted from final exams after George Floyd died, Klein refused. He said, everyone of all colors has to take the exam. UCLA immediately suspended him. Students threatened to kill him. Now Klein has police cars outside of his house. All of this is happening right now in America. The question is anyone defending these guys, defending the right to give exams or to read Martin Luther King out loud? Well, probably not. No one's defending anyone anymore. It's every man for himself. Meanwhile, the worst ideas, the ones that could harm all of us, are growing in power. Last week, the cosmetics company L'Oreal announced it was hiring a black transgender model called Monroe Bergdorf. Bergdorf will sit on the company's newly formed Diversity and Inclusion Advisory Board. Bergdorf had worked at L'Oreal before, if you follow fashion, you know that, but got fired 3 years ago for writing this specifically addressed to white people. We're going to quote from it. Quote, "Your existence, privilege, and success as a race is built on the backs, blood, and death of people of color. Your entire existence is drenched in racism.
Yes.
Racism isn't learned, it's inherited and consciously or unconsciously passed down through privilege. Once white people begin to admit that their race is the most violent and oppressive force of nature on earth, then we can talk," end quote. Now, Monroe Bergdorf got canned for writing that. L'Oreal announced that crackpot racial theories were contrary to, quote, diversity and tolerance toward all people, irrespective of...
That's weird. When a mob demands that Alexander's wife apologize, Tucker's pissed off as hell. But when this black woman loses her job at GQ magazine for speaking her mind about what's going on in the streets, he's glad that she got canned. I mean, this is how they represent their solidarity. This is how they represent what they support, is by picking and choosing what language to use on who got victimized and who is the criminal. Constantly is telling my older fellow Americans who the victim is and who the criminal is, rather than having them decide for themselves. Free the power, free the truth. Hippie hippie. Assalamu alaikum.
Of their race. That, of course, is true. Or it was true. It's not true anymore, apparently, at least now at L'Oreal. L'Oreal has apologized for ever supporting tolerance and diversity and has now rehired Bergdorf. The idea that racism can be inherited and passed down is now consistent with L'Oreal's Black Lives Matter-inspired HR policies. Some employees...
Nope. I mean, racism is inherited through the system. I don't think it's necessarily inherited in our blood. Racism is an institution that we made up. Fear is an inheritance. It's a gene that you can get. Trauma, it's part of the genes that you can get. So your limbic system and a lot of chemicals that we can't really control in this subconscious fear of existence are happening behind our scenes. The real problem actually is who shows up saying, "Hey, I know what you're feeling. Now put that out on that person over there because it's their fault. It's their fault over there. That's why you feel like that. That's why you feel like that." They're taking advantage of you.
There must be worried. We should all be worried. This is terrifying. We should fight against sweeping racial attacks like this with everything we have. Not because we're sympathetic to the specific...
He's saying fight against the anti-racism. And then earlier, he actually had a call to arms because so far the pushback has been weak. I think he said cowardly.
Specific group they're going after.
He's not going full Gavin McInnes, but he's pretty close.
No matter what, no matter who the target is. No child is born evil. Sin cannot be inherited. That's insane. Certain racial groups are not morally superior to other racial groups, and we should never condemn any ethnicity as, quote, the most violent and oppressive force of nature on earth. That's Nazi talk. I'm sorry.
Yeah, but like, look at how you're yelling at the camera. It's strange how much you look like a Nazi. Like, historically, we're just trying to understand what is the most oppressive force, and a lot of people are feeling that white supremacy is at the top of that, because white supremacy has justified a good amount of oppression, including and not exclusive to slavery, but also colonialism and imperialism combined. So, you know, take in historical context and not just what's going on now, and you see that white supremacy has been an active force of oppression since boats, Maybe even earlier than that. Horses, carriages. I don't know. When we invented the wheel. I don't know. I don't know.
It is. It is. Today, the left has singled out one ethnic group to hate and punish, but...
And the way he said it is, too, is like almost like an unhinged Hitler speech. And if his hair was any, like, oilier, I'm sure it would be, like, hanging all in front of his face. But the gel perfectly keeps the composure of a clean-cut look.
Tomorrow, it will be another ethnic group. Bigots never stop with just one. And
Oh, the left is the bigots now. The people who are tired of all the racism are the bigots.
it will be every bit as wrong when they do that to other people as it is wrong now, because it's always wrong. We have an entire monument on the National Mall in Washington dedicated to the idea that in America, citizens are judged by the content of their character, not by the color of their skin. We don't always live up to that ideal, obviously.
What?
But it's got to be the ideal. If we give up on that, if we stop trying to treat people equally under the law, all people...
How are they reappropriating Martin Luther King right now? And then how are they putting "we are meant to be treated equal" under the law at this point?
All Americans, all citizens, then we're done. At that point, this country is simply a collection of angry tribes, and violence is inevitable. That's where we're heading tonight at very...
Oh, so we already live the idea that everybody is equal under the law. Oh, I thought we weren't. My bad, Tucker. My bad. Protests are over. I thought nobody was equal under the law. I'm sorry.
Very high speed.
Shit.
Democrats are thrilled as they watch it. They believe they can win the November election by inciting tribalism and division, and maybe they can. But what then? How do you put the country back together? Republicans have a moral...
How do you put the country back together after you have dismantled the institution and idea social construct of racism? How do you put the country back together after you destroy racism? How do you put the country back together after you destroy racism? How do you... I keep asking this question like there's an answer to it. How do you put the country back together after you dismantle white supremacy? Nope, that doesn't fix it. How do you put the country back together by destroying racism? I don't know.
Full duty to defend us from this, to stand up
that one's
now,
breaking my brain.
right now, when it counts, for America's highest and most important ideals. This, right now, is the crisis that we all sensed with...
Wait, your highest ideals are at the bottom of a fucking lake, my dude. Like, your highest ideals are made of racist-ass statues that you refuse to take down.
...is coming. This is why we voted for them. When it really mattered, they promised, they would fight to keep this country from falling apart. Well, now the crisis is here, and they're not even trying. Mitch McConnell is the most powerful Republican in the Congress. He runs the Senate. That's the one chamber Republicans still control. So what did Mitch McConnell, the Senate Majority Leader, do today as American society began to unravel? Mitch McConnell did not defend the country, much less defend you. He read talking points that Nancy Pelosi could have written and that benefited only her.
Holy shit, bro. I can't believe Tucker Carlson just threw Mitch McConnell under the bus. Fuego.
Many
get a little
Republican
infighting
senators
for
did that
once.
Today. These people are cowards and they are liars. They pose as your protectors. They would sell you out for the price of lunch and laugh as you were hauled away.
Whoa.
At the very least, they could point out the endless lying all around us. There's so much of it. Here's one example. The mayor of Atlanta, Keisha Bottoms, just...
How backwards he's got it is that he wants Republicans to call out Democrat lies. But, like, here's the thing, man. They are fighting against the protests pretty hard. They aren't standing in solidarity. You can look at Matt Gaetz. You can look at Tom Cotton. Maybe that's who he wants them to act like, which I would not recommend. I would not recommend that at all. I think those two should resign. He's just got it backwards on the whole idea is because, like, even more so, the Republicans control the narrative of what's really reaching the mainstream for most part, and they are the ones like most complicit in spreading the most lies here. So it's kind of weird for him to demand that the Senate stop being paid shills for corporations and to expose the lies in the interest of being a shill for corporations.
Announced the creation of what she called a recovery fund designed to help businesses destroyed in the, quote, peaceful demonstrations in Atlanta. Wait a second, Keisha Bottoms. If the demonstrations were so peaceful, why the recovery fund?
Again, he puts up
You'd
no
think Republicans could at least point
source.
this out. It's kind of amusing, if nothing else.
Just goes
a
again, no
recovery
source.
fund for a peaceful demonstration, but no. You can't criticize Keisha Bottoms anymore. She's a very serious person. She may be Joe Biden's running mate. Respect is due.
I feel like that's the face of an empty man. But she is open to criticism just as much as Joe Biden's open to criticism. I stand on that position. But who have we not criticized in this entire piece? And I know it's about left-wing mobs, but Trump can be blamed for inciting violence and flames everywhere he goes with everything he tweets and everything he says. So why is no criticism going that way? Absolutely none. Zero. Zilch. Nada. That is what the boot tastes like. I don't like it. I don't like it.
And so with no pushback, the lying continues. It continues relentlessly in a torrent from everyone in charge, and no one stops it.
And then, like, I want to take these clips right here and just say, this is what they're doing. And they say it. And they say it out loud.
After a while, no citizen, no one watching believes anything. The few people who remember what America used to be like start to think maybe they're going crazy, but they're not going crazy.
Nope.
It's not you, it's them.
Yep.
The country really has changed, and very fast.
It's not you, it's them.
Last Friday, a man in Alabama called
It's not
Michael
you.
Dykes sent a text to several of his employees.
You're watching Fox News. It's not you.
Alabama called the Parkside Cafe. Protests over the death of George Floyd were apparently hurting his business, and he was frustrated by that. So in his text, Dyke criticized the protesters, though he also noted that George Floyd, quote, didn't deserve to die. Okay. Then one of Dykes' employees promptly posted his text to social media and called Dykes, quote, hateful and evil. Immediately, Dykes' restaurant was besieged. The writer Candace Owens saw this and decided to help. Owens opened a GoFundMe page to help the Parkside Cafe compensate for lost business. Within hours, donors sent in more than $200,000. Turns out an awful lot of Americans still believe you should be allowed to express your opinions in private text messages. We used to take that for granted. But the tech barons who run GoFundMe.com do not believe that. They don't want you to know that others believe that. If you're going to control a society, and they want to, you've got to treat every ordinary dissident like a dangerous revolutionary and shut them down. So that's...
How is he putting GoFundMe in that section? Because again, he's explaining the right tactics, like these are their tactics of what they're actually doing, but then throwing the blame somewhere else. And how does it work? They are literally the ones in position of power right now.
That's what they did. GoFundMe immediately shut down Candace Owens' account. In a statement, GoFundMe accused Candace Owens of, quote, inflammatory statements that spread hate, discrimination, intolerance, and falsehoods against the black community. GoFundMe did not acknowledge that Candace Owens is herself black, but of course it wouldn't matter anyway, because racism no longer has anything to do with race.
You can be racist against your own race. Very possible. I don't think anybody ever said it wasn't. Why is that? Why would that ever be a thing? Racism is racism. What?
It's a way to control disobedience.
Is it racist to think that other races can't be racist against their own races? Because I feel like you're saying racist so much to do this that you might be racist. I might be racist at this point. I've said it so much.
Robin DiAngelo is one of the people who changed how our professional class understands the term racism. DiAngelo is the author
here's that
of the
book
barely
again.
literate but deeply
White
influential
Rage.
book, White Fragility. You've probably heard some
Oh.
sociology professor yapping on CNN and using that term. White fragility. Robin DiAngelo did an interview with Esquire magazine this
White
week,
fragility.
and she announced that claiming you're not racist is no longer good enough. In fact, it's evidence you're a racist. Quote, I would urge white people to remove the phrase, I'm not racist, from their vocabularies. You got that new rule? They spring up out of nowhere like mushrooms after rain, but you'd better take heed. People who say they are not racist are especially racist.
Well, that quote was very short and taken out of context. I don't want to look up the whole thing because with Tucker, you know, he's just moving point to point to point to point. There's not too much to the sources. He doesn't dig deep enough. I could really, I don't want to. I want to wrap it up, but I think what's important here is that when you're saying I'm not racist, because like the cop video I did earlier, he said I'm not racist. But he also told that man he pulled him over because he's black. Like, straight up. So, it's always context. Like, racism has always mattered in context. Most of all. That's how you know it's racism from Shinola. Is context. That's how we know Candace Owens is racist, is because of the context. You think her black skin is immunity context from racism, but it's not. It's really not. And I feel like Tucker Carlson probably has some zingers to say against white people. So,
to remove the phrase, I'm not racist, from their vocabularies. You got that new rule? They spring up out of nowhere like mushrooms after rain, but you'd better take heed. People who say they are not racist are especially racist. Got that? It's the Chinese finger trap of race guilt. The harder you struggle against the accusation, the less likely you are to get out of it, the more likely you are of being punished for it. So stop resisting, sit back and take it. You have no choice, racist.
yeah, but like, I don't think I've ever like actually been accused of being racist. I don't think there's been a lot of people that there's probably a lot of people in the world who haven't been called racist. I don't think my parents have been called racist. I don't think they're racist either. Maybe. Yeah, you know what? My mom had a moment. My mom had a moment in Harlem. She had a moment. Yeah. Let's see here. Let's find the quote. Find that quote. Gotta find that quote. Gotta find that quote. Here is the full quote. All right, the question was, you've spoken a lot about believing white people aren't concerned with racial injustice, that there's this notion of white defensiveness. What do you mean by this? I don't think most white people care about racial injustice if it requires anything that is remotely inconvenient or comfortable for us. It's evident in the state of our society right now. It's also been my observation that because most white people don't even understand what racism is, we think that niceness is all it takes to be certified as not racist. So we carry on doing nothing, which ultimately upholds the status quo, until white people literally remove the phrase, I'm not racist, from our vocabulary, and we remove it because we understand that's not possible. We're going to uphold racism. Look at that. There's the full quote that he took out of context. And it makes a lot more sense. It's a lot more coherent. And it's not as belligerent as he makes it out to be. What a shock. And who knew Good Housekeeping was doing better reporting than Tucker Carlson?
That's what they're telling you. And a lot of people we used to respect are falling for it, caving to it, kneeling down before it. Don't be one of those people. For the sake of the country, stay strong, be brave, be kind, be compassionate, be empathetic, be loving toward your neighbor, but tell the truth. We are Americans. That is our right, and right now, it's our duty.
What was the truth that you're supposed to tell in that, Tucker? Like, you reached your conclusion, like I said, but you never divulged in any of these certain points. You just said mob outrage was here, mob outrage was here. We weren't mad about this, we weren't mad about this. So what are we gonna do? That was it's a bad racist. It's a very bad racist. You're in the doghouse. Very bad racist. There's really no excusing his behavior. It's racist. Oh, wow. I'm gonna have to check that one out. It's actually racist. Well, look at the time. I think it's time to hop off. No, I lost the link. All right. I think there's one more thing I ought to do. I saw an article for me and you. So, before last note. So Minneapolis City Council voted in a veto-proof, majority vote, council meeting to dismantle the Minneapolis Police Department and reallocate funds into social services. People consider that a victory. It took me 1 second to get on Reddit to find a local news from New York, I believe. No? Let's see here. Oof. I feel like it's New York. Yeah. I feel like Daily News is from New York. And it says here, New York lawmakers vote to repeal 50A, making police disciplinary records public. Whoop whoop. Whoop whoop. Whoop whoop. It's not defunding, it's not abolition, but it's pretty good. It's a good move towards transparency. Same way that we have open secrets. It's just whether or not accountability is going to be held, and whether or not excessive force is going to be pulled back. Again, a new system of police would be ideal, but we live in a very slow nation to progress. We don't grow very fast, so we'll take what we can get. And the repeal of 50A, I say hey, 'cause that's pretty cool. Don't let them tell you that this isn't working. Don't let them tell you that it's a conspiracy to overthrow rights, because it's gaining transparency. It gains democracy in these tiny little steps, But the angrier we get and the more force we show, the more they buckle, because they're actually scared of us deep down. And especially with how much the military just fucking abandoned Trump, like, over the weekend. Like, no confidence they have. So that's some good news, and that's something to go to sleep on. Fuck yeah.